Okay, I want to finish the Cowgirls Don't Cry, Red Dirt Royalty, Silver James. She flashed him a cocky grin. Can I have that in writing and notarized, Mr. Lawyer Guy? Thank you, Sonia. He chuckled but choked off the sound as he stared at the knot of people waiting ahead. A beefy man in Western clothes, his sleeves rolled up to reveal brawny forearms as his hat pushed off his forehead, argued vehemently with a tall, distinguished man wearing a tailored suit that cost more than many people make in a month. Damn, the old man was back from Vegas. He glanced at Cass and offered her a smile. Things were going to get ugly in a heartbeat. Are you going to tell me everything will be all right? No. Good. So what are you going to tell me? That's my father up there. I suspect the other man is a sales manager of the stockyards. If the old man stays true to form, he's threatening all sorts of dire consequences about now. Then we better go face whatever those consequences are. She chuckled to let her horse trot forward. Chance followed at a jog. Cord had parked nearby, and Buddy was there. Hackles raised, ears back. He could almost feel the growl forming on the dog's chest as he reined to a stop next to Cassie. I don't give a damn, Mr. Barron. The last time I looked, your name wasn't on the bottom of my paycheck. You can scream and cuss all you want, but since you don't own this place, I'm not about to turn away any cattle brought here for sale. Camera crews honed in on the altercation, and Chance winced. The family would need a lot of damage control after the news tonight. The old man, red in the face and sputtering, jabbed his finger in the man's chest. I will own this miserable excuse for a sales barn, and I will fire you insolent ass. I will shut this place down and fire everyone, even remotely associated with the stockyards. Do you understand me? Cyrus Barron straightened to his full height and looked for all the world like some old revival preacher raining fire and brimstone on his congregation. No one had called his bluff in ages. He pulled out his phone, called his assistant, and snarled terse instructions. Chance didn't hear, but could imagine with a cold, calculating smile. Cyrus faced the sales manager, ignoring Cass and Chance. The standoff lasted what felt like an hour, but was only 10 minutes, is reality. The herd bunched up in the street, and people watched or waited breathlessly. The manager's cell phone rang. He answered, and his face drained of color as he listened. He stammered and hemmed, but in the end, he ducked his head and mumbled something. Turning on his heel, he walked back to his wranglers and told them to shut the gates and go home. The stockyard had closed for the day. The old man had turned his cold smile on Cass, and adrenaline surged through Chance's body, leaving his fingers and toes tingling and burning. I'm disappointed in you. Chance straightened his shoulders as the old man focused on him. He was pretty sure that the smirk he plastered on his face was a mirror image of the one his father wore. Makes two of us. This has gone far enough, Cyrus. Indeed it has. I've already instructed my attorneys to remove you from the trust. Cass gasped, but he ignored her. If he broke eye contact now, the old man would think he'd won. Chance wasn't about to let that happen. His expression didn't change. It will be an interesting court battle, considering I'm the one who drew up the trust papers in the first place. Did you ever read them, Cyrus, or did you just sign them? There was that flicker in the old man's eyes he's been waiting for. He learned the art of confrontation from the master himself. He quirked one corner of his mouth. Oh, I forgot. Rule number 1. If you can't trust family, you can't trust family. You should have remembered that one, Cyrus. It's too late for your little who. Lightning fast, his fists wrapped in lapels of his father's suit. Don't go there, old man. You say what's on the tip of your tongue, I'll happily spend the night in jail for knocking the crap out of you. Cyrus glared but didn't finish the sentence. It's still too late, son. She can't make the balloon payment on that loan unless she sells those steers by 5 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, and that will not happen. Yes, it will. I'll buy the cattle from her. Chance and his father whipped their heads around at the new voice. The crowd grew silent with anticipation filled the air. The newcomer ignored Cyrus and walked over to Cass, where she remained mounted. Miss Morgan, I'm J. Rand Davis. As his gaze darted between the man and Chance had to stifle a laugh. If there was a man Cyrus Barron hated even more than Ben Morgan, it had to be Joseph Randolph Davis. They'd been rival wildcatters back in the early days of the oil boom. Now both of them were among the richest men in the country. Cass dismounted and offered her hand. Mr. Davis, I suspect it's going to be my pleasure to meet you. I certainly hope so. He glanced at his smartphone, checked a couple of screens, then smiled at her. According to the closing spot price on Chicago Commodities Exchange, prime grass-fed Black Angus cattle are going at for $147. Chance did a quick mental calculation. The price was per hundredweight, and given the size and quality of Cass's steers, she'd make an even over $500,000. Cass looked stunned as she also did the math. I'll have trucks lined up and we'll get a final weight on them, and I'm prepared to hand you a certified check for $300,000 as a down payment. Once the weigh-in is final, I'll cut another check for the remainder. Cass glanced over at Chance, her eyes wide with surprise. It was enough to pay off the note. He nodded to her. It's a fair price, Cass, and I figure Mr. Davis is good for the rest. She offered her hand and Davis shook it. He handed over a check and she glanced at it, stared for a long moment, blinked and barely resisted doing a happy dance right there in the middle of the street. Davis spoke immediately. Knowing Cyrus like I do, I didn't want to take any chances that he'd wiggle out of the deal. He reached for the inside breast pocket of his sport coat and pulled out some folded papers. Here's the bill of sale with the terms and deadline for the payment of the additional funds. Cass accepted them and with a confused expression glanced at Chase. Will you look it over? He looked over the papers and unfolded them as Davis added, Look it over, Chancellor. If Miss Baxter agrees, she can sign it and we'll all start loading these steers. Chance read through them, his practice eye picking out in the important parts. Everything was just as Mr. Davis had outlined. He handed the sheet of paper back to Cass as Davis passed the pen to her. She took the time to read every page, and Chance couldn't help but grin. And she glanced at him finally, and he nodded. She signed using his back. Chance had almost forgotten about his father until the old man snorted, You wait, Rand Davis. You think you'll win this time, but I guarantee this thing isn't over between us. Then he turned a baleful stare on Chance. Sorry, I didn't read that. As for you, I'll deal with you later. Davis offered a frosty smile. Careful what you threaten, Cyrus, the old man, spun around, stomped off to his chauffeured Lincoln. In a matter of minutes, the stockyards wranglers reappeared, open with the gates to some loading pins, and the herd was moved off the street. A spontaneous celebration erupted behind them, but Chance and Cass remained with Mr. Davis, watching the cattle were transferred up the chutes and loaded into the waiting trucks. Chance watched one of the richest oilmen in the world chat with a woman he loved. 3 months ago, on that snowy Chicago night, he would have never guessed he'd been standing on a dusty street in a stockyard city watching this scene. But then all of a sudden, Davis clamped his mouth shut in the middle of a sentence, and his eyes narrowed in anger. Chance turned around, thinking his father had returned. To his surprise, Cord stood there like a deer caught in headlights. The two men stared at each other, and Chance couldn't help but compare the standoff to the scene from a Western movie. The gunfighters on Main Street, fingers flexing over the handles of their 6-shooters, each waiting for the other to make a move. He never seen his brother look so unnerved. After a long, tense moment, Davis turned his head and focused his attention on Cassie. "I'll have the certified check for the rest of the money delivered to you tomorrow morning, Miss Morgan." She offered her hand again, after wiping it down her thigh, as dusty as her jeans appeared. She probably didn't clean much dirt off, but she made the effort. "Thank you again, Mr. Davis." Impulse, she raised up on her toes, planted a quick kiss on his cheek. "I couldn't have done this without you." Davis shook his head and glanced toward Chance. "No, honey, I think you had all the help you needed right there at your side." He offered his hand to Chance. "You take care of this little lady." Chance shook his hands with Rand. "I will, sir." He slipped his arm around Cassie's shoulder and hugged her close to his side. "You did it, darling." She smiled up at him. "No, we did it. I'm sorry I ever doubted you." He shook his head. "Don't apologize. To be honest, I wasn't sure I could stand up to the old man, but you made me want to. Your belief in me, Cass, that's what got me the courage." He caught the movement in the corner of his eyes, turned just in time to see Davis stop in front of Cord. The two men exchanged what appeared to be heated words until Chance realized something was off about Cord's posture. His shoulders dropped a little, and while he hadn't bowed his head, he wasn't quite looking Mr. Davis in the eye either. "Now what the hell's that all about?" Cass leaned around him to watch. Wow, Cord almost looks cowed. He definitely on the defensive." Davis walked away, but Cord stood rooted to the spot. Chance wrapped his fingers around Cassie's hand and tugged her with him as he approached his brother. "Cord, don't what? Know what's going on?" "Nothing. That didn't look like nothing to me." "Leave it be, Chance. It's..." Cass squeezed his arm before he could speak again. "Not now, Chance." Cord flashed her an appreciative look, then turned on a high wattage smile. Chance knew that look. Cord had dodged some sort of bullet, but that was okay. He'd eventually pinned down his brother to find out what this discussion had been about. The stockyard manager approached and cleared his throat. "Sorry to interrupt, folks, but the last cow has been loaded. 500 on the nose, Miss Morgan. Mr. Davis already paid the loading fees. If you'll just sign this receipt, we're all done." He thrust a battered aluminum clipboard in her direction. She scribbled her name across the bottom. The man made a show of tearing off the receipt and handing it to her with a flourish. "Congratulations, ma'am. We're all rooting for you." Chance glanced at the upturned face, and his heart lurched. Damn, but he was proud of this woman. "You did it, Cass. I'm so freaking proud of you." I'm about to bust. I love you, darling, with everything I am. Cord punched him in the gut. Well, don't just stand there, little brother. Kiss the girl. So that was the end of the story, but here is the epilogue. Cass adjusted the blue garter on her thigh, then slipped her foot into the Justin Wrangler Western boot. She flounced the full skirt of the wedding dress and turned around. Her maid of honor and two bridesmaids had crystal champagne flutes in their hands, ready to toast the nuptials. She glanced at the other person in the room. Boots had a finger stuck between his button-up collar and the neck, trying to stretch the shirt. With a knowing smile, she adjusted the silver and black bow tie. As soon as you walk me down the aisle, Uncle Boots, you can unbutton. Promise. The old man muttered something under his breath, and she had to bite back her giggle. She felt giddy, her thoughts scattered as her nerves thumbed in anticipation. After selling the herd, Chance had handed over the deed to the crazy imp, admitting that he'd already paid off the loan. She insisted on paying him back and did so 5 minutes before he dropped to a knee and asked her to marry him. She smiled at the memory. She squelched the one niggling through that she was about to make the worst mistake of her life. She must be insane to join Cyrus Byron's family by her own free will. But if she was crazy, she didn't care. Answer me one thing, baby girl. She shook the negative thought from her mind and focused on Boots. Yes. Would your life be better without him? A nervous laugh burbled up before she could catch it. What? Are you reading my mind now? Be honest, Castian, with me. But most importantly, with yourself. If you walked away now, would you look back in relief or regret? She stared out the window. Knots of people gathered on the lawn in the front of the chapel. She glimpsed what looked like a rugby scrum. The Barron brothers, they'd all come to support Chance. And each one of them had privately offered her friendship, brotherhood. She couldn't breathe for a minute, and her vision fogged. When it cleared, she saw only Chance standing there, surrounded by his family. Business-wise, he'd put his foot down. His law firm was his and not part of the Barron Enterprises. Though he continued to represent the family's various entities, Chance had talked things through with her before he agreed to remain as the Barron's legal counsel. He glanced toward the window, almost as if he knew she watched. That answers my question. She startled from her reverie. She turned to stare at Boots. What? I didn't say anything. You didn't have to, Cassie. The smile on your face said it all. Now let's get that rodeo going before I strangle in this monkey suit. Chance stood at the front of the church, looking outwardly calm, but he felt as if he was on the sinking life raft in a raging storm. Cord stood on the left along with his other brothers. Heidi and her husband occupied the front, who practically raised the brothers. Pew of the small chapel, along with a caretaker couple who practically raised the brothers, Beth and John Sanders. Cyrus Barron hadn't bothered to attend, not that he was surprised. The rest of his family stood up for him, though, and that's all that mattered. The front doors opened and the congregation hushed as the ancient organ wheezed the music out, vaguely resembling something classical Two bridesmaids and the maid of honor floated down the aisle. He squinted against the bright sun backlighting the door and made out Booth's stocky form. As the man stepped into the more sedate light of the nave with Cass on his arm, Chance held his breath. She looked beautiful, absolutely and totally, completely stunning. His heart galloped, then smoothed out its rhythm. Her gaze held his, and any sense of foreboding dissipated. God, but he loved this woman with every ounce of his being. The feeling of righteousness overwhelmed him, and he blinked away the sudden moisture gathering in his eyes. Cass stopped in front of him, leaned up on her tiptoes, and kissed his cheek. "Hey, don't you know, cowboys aren't supposed to cry?" He smiled and whispered, "I heard it was cowgirls. Never cry. They just get back on and ride." Yes, Chance Barron always knew exactly what he wanted, and he always got it. Don't miss the next book in Silver James' Red Dirt Royalty series, The Cowgirls' Little Secret, available April 2015 from Silver James and Harlequin Desire. Thank you for joining me for this book. Again, there was 3 things that caught my eye. I loved the picture because I just love windmills. I don't know why. I thought that it was a cute, romantic picture, too. I loved the title because of Brooks and Dunn. And then another thing that I remembered, Red Dirt Road, was the name of the album, one of their cuts from that album. And then I'm like, Red Dirt Royalty, that's kind of neat. So that's what brought me this book to you all. Without even reading the back cover, it was just the front cover that drew me in. Thought I would share that with you. And until we meet again, keep reading.